Here we are, near the end of 2021, and some of you will have noticed that I haven't uploaded a video in a couple of months. There's been a few things that have changed on the channel over the last year, so I wanted to take a chance to acknowledge those and to reassure anyone who might have thought that I was dormant or just wasn't doing this anymore that I am coming back. Just talk about what will be changing, what will be staying the same. I guess a good place to start would be gratitude, especially with reference to monetization. This year, I guess it was like March or something, I put up PayPal Donate on my blog, and I think there have been several dozen of you now who have made a donation, ranging from about £5 to a few people gave me nearly 50 quid, which is kind of humbling. I was thinking whether I should put people's names on screen, but I'm not clear about whether people actually want that, but you know who you are. Thank you. I really appreciate it. The other thing that happened was YouTube, they're moving towards like a subscription model. So they want to do a Spotify thing where people pay to subscribe to YouTube so they can avoid the advertising. And part of that means that you can't really opt out of advertising appearing on your videos. So earlier in the year, I decided if people are going to be paying YouTube to have advertising appearing on my videos anyway, then I did want to receive a proportion of that money. And you're now seeing paid advertising on my videos. So I want to say thank you for continuing to watch my content despite the fact that there's advertising on it. Not ideal in some ways, but I'll be honest, like I got my first 100 quid payment just before Christmas here, and it was really helpful. It's made Christmas time a bunch easier for me, so thank you for skipping through or sitting through whatever kind of advertising they're putting on my videos. I'm not really sure. So having got kind of a thank you out of the way, let's talk. Well, who really wants to hear this? Anyone? I don't know. I'll find out by seeing how many views this video gets, but I am going to talk about some of the things I've been finding frustrating about this process. One of the principal things that was making me quite frustrated with the process of what I was doing on YouTube was actually just editing video and the problems I was having with my computer. Computer was crashing all the time. It was really difficult to get files off my phone and onto the computer in order to begin editing. So one of the reasons that I've taken time out is in order to upgrade my computer a lot. Videos which might previously have taken me like several hours to render, and where I would have to sort of babysit the computer because if it went to hibernate then that would ruin the render. The way the computer's set now, I can bash through the same video in 15 minutes. So that's much less frustrating now, but I'm sure anyone who's built their own PC from parts and reinstalled a new operating system, like I had to go up from Windows 7 to Windows 10, and there were some issues associated with that. You know how time consuming it can be, but I mean there was about 3-4 weeks there where all I was doing was kind of dealing with that, researching what to buy, buying it, unpacking it, assembling it, getting it all to work together well. So that accounts for part of the delay in uploading any new material. Another thing that I've been finding kind of frustrating is that doing the teardowns and everything on this channel has taken up so much of my small amount of discretionary time of a week that I'm not getting as much time as I would like to actually make music or involve myself in other forms of creativity. From early 2021 through to about September, I was uploading frequently, like twice a week, quite often 3 times a week, occasionally 4 times a week. And a lot of those videos were these kind of teardown videos. And although I have kind of branched out into reviews and some more kind of like tutorial and creative stuff, it has been this kind of constant slog to build this like back catalogue of how you take these things apart. So moving forward, while I am going to still be doing the teardowns quite regularly, not nearly as regularly as I did this year, although I do actually have quite a few teardowns filmed that I haven't uploaded yet, so maybe for the earlier part of the year it'll still be like that. But moving on, I want to be doing more I mean, even the videos that I've done where it's like reviews and tutorials and so on, I mean, I've enjoyed those more than I've enjoyed making the teardowns, just from a variety point of view. But I would like to be kind of covering some more general topics, making my kind of personality, musical personality, a larger part of what you see on the channel. Some of you might have seen an interview I gave with Chris Made on Tape. I haven't really done an About Me video or anything on this channel so far, so have a look at that video, that interview with him, if you haven't seen it already and you're curious about my background, or we touched on some of that stuff in the conversation with Chris. But for context, for those of you who didn't see that, I put up some videos about the 244, really having no expectation of how many views they would get or whether anyone would subscribe to the channel, and not really clear whether I was going to continue to do it. And they got, not a huge amount of traffic, but some, and people seemed to be like, grateful that it was up there, and I got feedback back from people that they'd fixed their 244 off the back of these videos. So I kept going, making more of those videos, and then once I'd sort of like presented as much of what I knew about how to fix a Tetrakan 244 on the assumption that whoever was watching this was kind of like a novice, once I got to that point I was like, well, was that me done? And then I had this idea that I was going to try and make this catalogue of teardown videos covering every Porter Studio ever made, and possibly every multi-tracker ever made. And that sort of context, basically my disembodied hands and soothing uncular voice guiding you through unscrewing screws and unplugging plugs, makes up the majority of the content that I've got up here on this channel to date. And the channel's kind of got bigger than I thought it might do. I mean, at the time of making this, I'm just over 2,000 subscribers. More than half of those have come in the last year. I've been going for about 3 years, so obviously it's not like Mr. Beast numbers, but it's more than I might have thought, considering it's just like a repair channel for an obsolete piece of equipment. And that's been really good in a way, but it's also kind of come with a bunch of kind of pressures and frustrations. I work full time. I have care responsibilities and various other things going on in my life. You may have seen something vlogish where you saw that actually I had a house fire, stuff related to COVID, all of these things. I've been kind of juggling all these things, spinning all these various plates whilst continuing to explore as wide a range of these multi-track cassette recorders as possible. And a lot of things that I probably should have been giving my time and attention to have sort of fallen by the wayside a little bit because of that. And one of the things that's kind of fallen to one side because of me trying to make more and more of these teardown videos is actually properly repairing some of the stuff that I already have. I have a limited amount of time to do the YouTube stuff each week, and I'm guilty of tearing down a unit, roughly identifying what's up with it, and then it goes into a shelf in the cupboard and stays there. And the result is I've got quite a lot of half-fixed stuff, and I'm capable of fixing it. I just haven't had time. I mean, they call it cognitive dissonance, don't they? In the back of my mind, it's like a physical presence, all these half-fixed units. There must be like 10 of them. And 10 unfixed units, I've probably fixed a couple of hundred of these things at this point. So, I mean, it's not like a bad strike rate, and it's not like they're unfixable or I've given up on them, but it's this kind of psychological overhead that's making me enjoy the creation of the YouTube content less, or it was. That sense of almost imposter syndrome, like here I am presenting how to fix this stuff, but I've got these things that need to be fixed that I haven't fixed yet. Another thing that ties in with is dealing with comments and stuff on YouTube a little bit, but mostly in forums and things like that. I'm actually a very private person, and full disclosure, I don't enjoy particularly good mental health. Anxiety, depression, these sorts of things are issues for me that I have to cope with. And I think when I started doing this, I was very much afraid that the reaction I was going to get was going to be very, very negative. And I was kind of pleasantly surprised that, to begin with, the feedback that I was getting was almost unequivocally positive. Communicating with people in YouTube comments or by private message and talking them through things and getting them to a point where their unit was working, at least partly because of my intervention, like that was like super satisfying, and it did a lot to build my confidence. As things have kind of got more popular, and I'm thinking in particular, like I used to be very, very active in a couple of kind of forums, Facebook groups and so on, and at a stage where these groups were kind of small and people who knew how to fix them were quite thin on the ground. I would really try and answer every technical question and give straight to the point, actionable advice on whatever problem people were having. As time has gone on, although I would still say that 90% of the feedback I get is really positive. I'm not on these groups as I am Tetrakan and kiss my ring because I am the mighty biggest dog in the kennel in terms of Porta Studio repair, that kind of thing doesn't really motivate me. I want to see as many of these machines up and running as possible. But I think as we've gone along, I've definitely been confronted situations where I feel like I've done a decent job of providing information that is appropriate for somebody who's maybe a novice, and someone else is like, oh, there's that guy with the YouTube channel, so I'm going to make sure that anyone else reading this knows that I know as much or more than him. And so someone will just come in with subjective stuff presented as gospel, esoteric stuff presented as essential, and it's I think I've done a good job most of the time of not engaging with that and not betraying my frustration with it. Perhaps I should be giving some of these situations a sort of benefit of the doubt, people are just trying to be helpful, and the sense of kind of it being condescending or fastidious that I'm seeing in it is due to the aforementioned issues I have with some kind of chemical balance in my brain where I've got this negative confirmation bias on life. But I mean, it has kind of put me off it a little bit. So one of the things that I've done is gone away and unpacked that in terms of taking proactive steps so that that's no longer such an issue. One of the things that's kind of fallen to the side since I started doing the YouTube channel and doing all these teardowns is when I was kind of teaching myself to do this from forums, various articles, other people's electronic stuff, content on YouTube. I always meant to get on and find some good books and absorb the information and up my game that way, and I just haven't got round to it. And I think that the reason why, basically, I was finding myself, I was letting the most negative 10% of my interactions with people dictate 90% of how I felt about it. One of the things that I think will help me kind of feel better about this and be more likely to just shrug it off when someone's, trying to kind of prove they know more stuff than me or something at the expense of helping beginners is I'm going to hit the books. And this is a book. This is a book. There's 2 or 3 others, and I'm going to be reading through those in detail, making my own notes. Another thing to do with gratitude, like I was talking about earlier, and money and monetization and all this kind of stuff. I've got a Patreon. I haven't properly announced it because I didn't want to put more pressure on myself to create another tier of kind of content that was behind a paywall. But I have 2 patrons now. Hi guys. But I've been having a think about, well, what would be a way that benefits me and the people who are signed up for Patreon to create kind of custom content. So not custom content, exclusive content is what I mean. So I think what I'll be doing is quite long form, unedited summaries of chapters from some of these kind of more technical books about electronics repair. And that's not to say that I won't eventually do a more condensed or general version for general YouTube consumption. I probably will, but I'll be going into a lot of detail on the Patreon, but I hope that what that will mean is it will give me the confidence that when somebody goes, oh, what about this, niggling detail of your advice, that what I'm saying is kind of backed up by people who do have a lot more experience than I do. I hope it will enrich the advice that I'm giving on this channel, and hopefully it will give me some insight into some of the units that I've had where I did get a bit stuck with them. For instance, earlier this year, I just had a big car bill, feeling the pinch for money. One of the repercussions of doing this YouTube channel is that a lot of people in the UK approach me about repair work. And there was a while earlier this year, like sort of March time, when people were saying, hey, can you fix my so-and-so? I was just going, yes. I devoted an entire fortnight of annual leave to trying to fix about 5 or 6 units. And inevitably, almost every single one of the units that I took in at that time had some sort of issue that I'd never seen before. So that probably wasn't the best use of my time. That was a whole backlog of frustration and so on, a feeling of obligation to the people who'd sent their units to me. And I hope that by kind of hitting the books and digesting some information, I can either get some ideas about how to fix this stuff, or at least make peace with myself that occasionally you're going to get units that are hard to fix. I mean, I don't suppose that many garages promise to fix any car, no matter the condition. But I think sometimes when I've been faced with a unit that's just been really badly stored, it just has umpteen gazillion problems. It's basically a lemon in it. I feel like there's something lacking in me that I can't fix this thing. I think if I get myself fully abreast of all the kind of techniques and insights or whatever that are in these books, then I can afford to let go of the occasional difficult project. Another thing that happened this year, my face appeared on YouTube for the first time, and I think when I started off, it was a kind of conscious decision to do point of view, and it's just my hands and my voice. The car is the star. Here's the Porter Studio. Here's what you'll be seeing when you're doing the same work, and that kind of makes sense. But honestly, I'm a little bit like body dysmorphic as well. Let's say I'd been the victim of an acid attack, or I'd been mauled by a bear. Does that mean I shouldn't be on YouTube? Of course it doesn't. So I don't want to be like a body fascist anyway, but I also realise that there's nothing really wrong with my face. I just, for some reason, kind of feel really weird about how I look and how I look on camera. So yeah, doing something like this where it's just my head for ages is actually a bit of a big deal for me. The sort of personal challenge thing, can I live with putting a video of my face up on the internet? That's one reason to do it, but I think occasionally people watching my stuff having some better sense of who I am as a human being is probably positive. I don't let hustle culture and the whole kind of subsection of YouTube, which is about being on YouTube, influence me too much, but I'm aware of what they've got to say, and I know that having a human face in your videos, and particularly in your thumbnails, at least part of the time, is good. For me, the largest thing about success is that I help people fix stuff, and that I enjoy it and I get some kind of creative jollies out of it. I'm not indifferent to the idea of being popular, or it being some sort of secondary income for me at some point, but I mean, they are secondary considerations to me, those other things. But with a view to getting over my own hang-ups about my appearance, and possibly in the process making what I'm doing more relatable to a broader audience, then yeah, occasionally I'll have videos like this where I talk into the camera. The ones where I'm performing instruments, I'm more likely to have my head in it rather than cut it off so it's just my hands, which is something I was doing before. Yeah, other things I might be doing, experimenting with format, because obviously a lot of the stuff that I've been doing is my hands with a screwdriver, with a soldering iron, whatever. I'm going to have a go at doing some videos where I don't wing it so much, it's partly, if not completely scripted, and I'm using B-roll and still images, reference images to illustrate what I'm saying. I'm going to have a look at raising my production standards a little bit. You may notice this experiment with a kind of cliche of like blue light, red light in the background, key light up there. So I've got some like really basic LED lights, and I'm going to start trying to make my videos look less like they were filmed on a potato in a toilet, because actually I've got quite a nice like studio space here. There's quite nice background-ish, furniture-ish stuff in my surroundings, so I think I can afford to start treating the place where I'm working more like a video studio as well. So that's something that will come to the fore more in 2022. Another aspect of creativity that I would like to include in this channel is, I've got some grounding in the visual arts, and I would like to make visual art a part of this channel. Maybe some kind of visual accompaniment to finished tracks is something that I would like to explore in future, and that's going to involve using the editing software in a more sophisticated way. I realise not everyone who subscribes to this channel is going to be particularly interested in this, but for you video nerds out there, it is Sony Vegas that I've been using, and there's a couple of known issues, like if you hit undo while you're in the middle of moving a clip, then it pretty much automatically crashes. And although the upgrade to the computer has mitigated some of the problems I was having with rendering and so on, I'm also having a think about changing what rendering software I'm using. I don't really want to have to go to a separate piece of software like After Effects in order to do compositing. And so I think I'm probably going to start using DaVinci Resolve. That should make color grading and things like that feasible or faster. I mean, at the moment I bump up the contrast on my videos and I do a little bit of color balancing, but it's a bit hit or miss. I've got videos up there, I look at it, I'm like, oh, that's so blue, like what was I thinking? Whereas I think if I use the color grading stuff in DaVinci Resolve, then hopefully there's more of a kind of like set benchmark for how my content looks, and so I can get a bit more consistency and visual interest into what I'm doing that way. So I mean, that's not going to be like immediately apparent in videos that I do starting from 2022, but maybe by the end of the year I'm going to have upped my game visually a bit. Something else that happened this year was I kind of rebranded myself slightly. I am now going under the moniker Tetrakan as opposed to Tetrakan Super Monoblock. People with a long memory who've been with me since the beginning may remember that I started off as tinkering with Tascams. Again, this is something I talked about with Chris from Made on Tape when he interviewed me. I didn't really want to be stuck with just Tascams. I wanted to look at Fostex stuff as well. I wanted to have the option of producing more general content at some point in the future. So I went for Tetrakan Super Monoblock because it's a bit very nondescript. But then I realised that's super hard to remember and spell. So I'm abbreviating it just to Tetrakan in the hope that when people try and recommend me by word of mouth and Reddit or something, that they can spell it properly and this kind of thing. I, just for shits and giggles, because I really like black metal, have made a black metal version of my logo. I'm almost certainly going to try and do a PCB looking version of the black metal logo. Just trying to kind of like make another way that I'm trying to make it like a little bit more kind of visually interesting. As far as the music side of things goes, a lot of the stuff that I've put up, I mean, there's been some covers or musical material that I haven't developed all that much. And although I've been saying, I'm doing it to show you the sort of results that you can get very quickly and easily with this obsolete technology, and there's some truth to that, I think at a certain level there's been a self-defense thing there as well. Like, I don't want to kind of put something that I care about too much up on the internet in case people don't like it. This coming year, I'm going to try and get over that a bit, and I'm going to try and do more of my own music. I think that's going to go in two directions stylistically. One is, I've got pretty broad taste and I will listen to pop music, country music, jazz, classical, so on and so on. But I think two of the things that were big when I was a teenager were black metal and grunge. And I think, in particular, Soundgarden, Fugazi, Dark Throne have all left an impression on me musically. But then later in life, I got really into Mahavishnu Orchestra, King Crimson. So this kind of blends between quite heavy, abrasive, weird punk metal music, but then also kind of proggy, jazzy, complex music. So there's a combination of those things are going to represent one half of what I'm doing, but I think I really want to get back to doing some electronics based music. That's something else that I do have some background in. So what? I don't know what I was going to say next there. Just got lost. I also feel like there's quite a lot of like purism around DAWless production and analog. And for me, using Porta Studios, it's more to do with how it forces me to work. I mean, obviously I do like the sound, and it does sound different to wider tape formats and to digital. But I am certainly don't want to put myself out there as a throw away your computer advocate or a cassette is better than reel-to-reel tape advocate. And to that end, I'm going to be doing some stuff exploring using the Porta Studios in conjunction with some of the digital tech that I've got. So I've got an MPC Live back here. I think I'm going to be doing quite a bit of content using the MPC Live with the Porta Studio, like sampling from the Porta Studio to the MPC Live, or passing the MPC Live outputs into the Porta Studio and vice versa. And also the digital audio workstation, updates, drivers, it can be pretty frustrating. However, I am fluent in the use of Nuendo. I've gone through periods in the past where I was using digital audio workstations exclusively. They can definitely do things that a Porta Studio can. I want to look at the intersection between those, how you might develop a recording which began on a Porta Studio on the digital audio workstation, or how you might pass material out of the digital audio workstation into the Porta Studio for certain effects. So these are some of the things that I would like to be looking at over the course of the next year, in amongst sticking with the repair stuff, albeit on a less regular basis. So I think I've rambled all the stuff I wanted to ramble. Kind of an experiment for me, talking head video. I hope that all made sense. Was of interest to some of you, or at least reassured you that there's more to come in the new year. Hope you have a good festive period. This year's been bearable despite COVID and whatever other challenges are going on in your life. And thanks for watching. Hope to see you again soon.